Hello, my name is Jacob Adams, and I'm a fitness and leadership coach. I'm also the creator of the concept known as common sense self-mastery. Have you ever looked at someone and instantly been attracted to them, wanted to seduce them, had fantasies about them? Maybe their clothes hugged them in just the right places that you could visualize feeling their body, and just wanting to dance with them, caress them, kiss them, even maybe think about starting a family with them immediately. I know I've had feelings like that, and most of us have. I can recall, for example, one situation with actually two of my girlfriends. It was very much a attraction at first sight. And as one of my mentors said, whenever it's love at first sight, you might want to run the other way, because what has happened is that the childhood wounds have actually aligned, and the wounded child in you is identified with the wounded child in them. Now, before we get into that, for example, the people I'm talking about, I remember, for example, the last girlfriend I had that I can recall, that, in other words, that I'm making this video for in a way, I should say not for her, but about, is that this is one of the people I learned my lessons from. And well, when I first saw her, she was cute, started batting her eyes at me, she was playing with her high heels and just doing everything she could to seduce me. And it worked. I mean, M&Ms, giving me M&Ms, just sort of batting her eyes. I'd go to an office and then there she was, just batting her eyes at me, like not even kind of, like just blatantly flirting with me. And you know, it flattered me, I must admit. And I was single at the time. I was in a dating time of my life where I did like this energy, this, erotic fantasy that I could write out, and I wasn't hurting anybody. I was not like I was dating somebody or committed to somebody, and this person was batting her eyes at me and letting it be known that I could move forward. Before you knew it, we went on a date, and it didn't take long before the moment of truth came, and we were, getting kind of heavy in a situation. And she says to me, and I actually wanted to pull away from it and go home because of the fact that because I thought to myself, I don't feel like committing to this person, and I'm moving a bit fast, and what if I just abandon her and leave her on? I was like, it's probably as hard as it was gonna feel to do, I was willing to walk up away, and I was actually, I remember thinking to myself, I was about to leave that bedroom that day, and she tells me, "What are you, a pussy?" And so that struck a chord with my manhood, which was her objective. She basically manipulated me and played with my manhood and my ego and the lust in me, and I gave in, and we had a night of intimacy, right? I'll leave it at that. The reason I told you all that is because sometimes situations like that happen in life where we're deep in, and we're probably going to fall into a lustful movement of our human expression and animal nature, or romance, whatever you want to call it. We're going to do it, right? So this went on. She was actually somebody I would see on and off, as you could even say that we were like, it felt like a friend with benefits. As you've seen some of my videos, I've talked about friends with benefits. It started out like a friends and benefits, and then when I finally broke up with this girlfriend I had that wasn't a friends with benefits, she was in a committed relationship, I didn't have anyone to sort of go to but her. So I ended up calling this girl up, and before you knew it, in a few months, I made her my girlfriend. So we'd already had sex several times, and I made her my girlfriend. Now, if anybody knows about sex and relationships, it doesn't sound far-fetched. This may be a lot like your story right now. You might be knowing exactly what I feel. Now, I will tell you right now, I broke up with a girl I'm talking about 3 years ago. Okay, and I've been single since then. So my level of clarity and comfort to talk about this is pretty significant. If you're anywhere having problems with your relationship, I'm willing to bet it doesn't feel anything like the smile on my face, or you wouldn't be able to just come out and say these things this comfortably. So, don't think I'm just like, la-di-da-di-da-di. I've really worked hard to let go of the past. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about today as to some of the struggles, what I could have done differently, what I should have done differently, and what I learned, okay? Well, I remember going through a lot of self-esteem issues because she was abusing me mentally and physically. Again, this is, I won't ever tell you who it is, but she was, saying everything in the book. She was saying things like, when you leave, I'm going to have somebody come over here, and this is where I say beep, beep, beep. If there was a beep, 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 she said, I'm going to have someone over here. I'm going to call someone over here when you leave and to fuck me. In other words, she wanted me to stay there in a toxic environment. And if I left, she was trying to put a cage on me in a way that if I left, she was going to have someone fuck me. And now, if that would have only happened one time, it would have been bad enough, right? But this was actually a plethora of times, of words. She knocked on my character. She criticized every single thing about me. And she abused me with words. Now, why did I put up with it? Because I didn't put my foot down. I should have just, and I did put my foot down every time she did it, but I kept going back. I was stuck in a vicious cycle. Even looking up books like borderline personality disorder, and that's sort of what I think she had, okay? Because it was like, I hate you, don't leave me, which was, and she was a textbook person that acted like that, okay? It was pretty much a textbook situation that it felt like she acted like borderline personality disorder, BPD. And in any case, in seeing that situation, in seeing that whole thing play out, I needed out, but I couldn't break free for the life of me. I'm telling you, if I gave her 100 or 200 chances, that would be not an overstatement, like not an exaggeration. Okay, and so here I am looking back at 3 years ago, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, why didn't I just put my foot down and just, And so I'm telling you, if you've given someone 100 chances, I'm telling you, I'm willing to bet, like, it might be 50, it might be 70, dude, like one chance a week. You build it up, and at the end of the week, you're in a cycle, you're in a vicious script, you're in a vicious situation, and you're back where you're at, and there's no growth, and you can't see a way out. I pretty much I was in this cycle for about 1.5 years before I really put my foot down. I said, okay, let's take a 90-day break, and if we don't make it, let's go ahead and call it off. And we didn't make it. We took the 90-day break, and then we called it off. It was hard, dude. It was fucking grueling, actually. That's actually when I started meditating and getting into a 60-day meditation challenge, because I just said, dude, like, what the fuck? My mind, I felt like, was just out of control. Like, what was coming over me that I couldn't just master who I was? And here I am creating the concept common sense self-mastery, and I was very far from mastering who I was at that time. In reality, it felt like she was pushing all the buttons, controlling all the situations, and she herself was in control of the situation, okay? So that's when I found, eventually I called up this psychologist, psychotherapy, because I didn't even know what to do. I'm losing my shit. I mean, I'm showing up late to work, canceling on clients. My clients and the CrossFit crew I was working with at the time could tell that something was off. I just wanted to end the training and go home and leave them. And they started to sense, like, what the hell is wrong with this guy right now? Like, they never said it, but I could sense that they sensed something was off within me, right? Like, I wasn't bringing the joy. I wasn't bringing sincerity. And well, that's the truth of it. So one day I call this psychotherapist and I say, listen, this is what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Just tell me, help me out here. Help me. I'm giving her my story of basically what you just heard in a nutshell. But at that time I was very deep in it, so I'm sure I told her even more. And she goes, look, you might want to look at this book called Boundaries in Dating by Henry Cloud. So I looked it up and I started reading it, and I bought it immediately and started reading it. And that's some of the stuff we'll go into today. But it's talked about how to not have sex before you establish healthy boundaries, to date, to not be all about control. Like, let's say I'm a man, right? So sometimes there's a macho culture to, hey, you know what, I could sleep around, but not you, and stuff like that. And so there's this like disparity and all this shit that's kind of old school like stuff that we're still trying to get through as a society. But you know, I'm not saying that that's what I was trying to establish, but I'm saying, what I am saying is that this book went into, hey dude, like, you don't have sex and she doesn't have sex. Does that make sense? So it started saying like, don't be having sex, and neither her, and just date several people. Like, dating is about non-commitment. But hey, you want to go to coffee? Let's say there's a girl I'm interested in, and she says, you know, I'm going to go on a date with this guy. Like me, if I'm not in a committed relationship with her, I should be happy that she's out there dating to see what works for her. In other words, if it's not all about me and my selfish desires and my ego and what I want, and if what it means if she goes out, does it mean that I'm not good enough? Like, oh, are you trying to say that he's better than me? Like insecurities, am I projecting my insecurities onto her? This is what the book started sort of bringing out of me. Like, oh, it was like so easy and basic, but I'm willing to bet, like, if you look at society right now, people don't tell us how to date. They tell us how to do algebra problems. They tell us how to do all kinds of stuff, right? And how to read, how to write. But they never tell you, okay, this is what dating is. Okay, do this, date. Don't have sex, just go out. Think about how much simpler it would be if we could just go up to somebody and be like, hey, would you like to have some coffee? No, I don't want coffee. Okay, great. But instead, we sort of want to have sex with people sometimes, and then we go up to them with the intention to have sex. So it feels like far more like of a thing. Whereas in, yeah, obviously a date does have sexual innuendo into it. Like, it can feel very much like, oh, are you asking me on this date because maybe you're interested in kissing me, and that thing can lead to another. See, as adults, we can go ahead and admit that, yeah, that's exactly what it is. But if we have the core of shame, and we have these things that are messing with our realities, and we're very insecure and stuff like this, we can sort of go up to somebody thinking, okay, you know, I have to have sex with them. And if they don't have sex with me, that means I'm not worthy and I'm not good. And we build up these stories in our head that, you know, we feel so insecure sometimes. And what I'm going to go into today is sort of how I broke away from that type of mentality of feeling like I needed validation from sex, feeling like that's what made me a man, feeling like that's what made me happy, breaking away from codependency and stuff like that. Now, so if you just stop right now, go get Henry Cloud's Boundaries in Dating, and I don't sell the book, okay? I'm just trying to help you, all right? So what I'm saying is, get the book, and I recommended it to many people. As a matter of fact, my friend Victoria, who's just got into a relationship recently, shout out to Victoria, I spoke with her on the phone, and she's been wanting a relationship to be well, and she sounds like she's getting in a good one right now. And I say, so what are your boundaries? And she immediately told me, we haven't talked about boundaries yet, but he's such a good guy, we don't need boundaries. I was like, okay, great. He's like a Christian man. It sounds reasonably believable. I'm not trying to knock that. Now, for some of you watching, you may need to hear exactly what I'm saying. Get the book, Boundaries in Dating. And today I'm going to talk about how to establish and why to establish boundaries, and also known as like putting your foot down, okay? I was actually talking to my friend today, and she says, I need to put my foot down. And I was like, dude, it's crazy. I was going to make this video called putting your foot down. So I was like, I got to make this video. Okay, so now once I read the book and started understanding, like, okay, I can date without having sex, and as long as I don't have sex, I won't get attached, because the book is Christian based, okay? So the book goes into how if you don't get attached to a person with sex, you're gonna have a far better chance at letting them go if you just had coffee with them, or you just had a chicken dinner with them. It doesn't mean you won't feel like a little disappointed, but you're gonna feel a lot more resilient, like, oh, I could keep going, I could keep dating other people. But if you already had sex with somebody, it's gonna be very difficult for you, if you have a natural connection to people, and you're an emotional being, and you have value systems, and you have a self-esteem, it's gonna be very difficult to share your body and your soul and your connections and like your spirit with somebody if you believe. Say, some people don't believe in spirituality, so this video is going to be difficult to convince people that don't believe that there's a depth of connection to our existence. Okay, like if you don't believe there's a depth of connection to who we are when we have sex, meaning more than just intercourse or the penis and the vagina, etc., etc. If you don't believe there's more to it than that, then you're going to have a hard time understanding boundaries. But if you are true to yourself, many of you watching my videos will be understanding that there is more to it than just the penetration or the sexual dopamine kick the brain lets out in an orgasm, or the validation that you get from sex. In a relationship, there's far more complexities at play. That's why it's so hard to be in one. That's why they call it work, because it's challenging, okay? And if anyone that tells you differently, they probably haven't had experience enough to know. Like, I've had enough experience to know. So that's why I'm making this video on this Sunday night, before I make something to eat. It's a Sunday night, I'm making this video before I make something to eat. So clearly it's important, and it's important enough to be said, it's important enough to make. But if you're a person that, you don't think that there is a spirit to you, or you don't think there's a soul connection that you make with people when you have sex, it's gonna be very difficult to understand what I'm about to tell you, okay? So when I read the book and I understood that it's not about the validation of my ego and just having sex, and it wasn't about power games, and I understood, hey, I'm not anyone to control this person until, if I'm married to them, okay, then I have a say because we've established boundaries. But if you already had sex with them, it's going to be very difficult for you to establish boundaries, because they already got the milk from the cow. Like, they already got what they wanted, so they already have a chip of leverage in that power dynamic. It might sound funny to you, it might sound like I'm being fake, but I'm not trying to be fake with you, okay? Like, I'm being very real, okay? So, you might think this is funny, but this is an old saying for a reason. Why buy the cow when you get the milk for free, okay? Like, this is a consistent saying in the world, like, for a reason. Like, it's not the first time you heard it. Why has it stuck around so long, okay? It's because there's a truth to it. It doesn't mean that every time, like, if we have sex before marriage, but you need to establish these boundaries, have a good relationship, and the book goes into how once you establish the boundaries, and you'll hear about how to do that and what to talk about here in a second. Once you establish your boundaries, and the person can respect them, and you get along with them, and you can say, okay, well, now we're ready to be committed because I've dated this person, and I've dated that person, and I know what they're about, and and they know what I'm about. And you know what? Out of these, let's say these top 5 people, this person wants to be with me, and I want to be with him, and that's where the commitment can come from. And now there's commitment, and now, if you both want to go to the same place, meaning marriage, and you both want kids, and you're both willing to go all in, well, yes, now you see how that's a far different package than, hey, you look good in that miniskirt. Let me just, let's have some sex right now, and I can't wait to feel good and letting that orgasm out, and just go to the next one. Like, does that make sense? There's a big difference between this and this, because oftentimes when it is just passion and when it is just sex, sometimes what happens is now you're trying to move into this. But if you recall from the beginning of the video, if it was love at first sight, or just like instant lustful attraction, and that's all you have, that's what it means when they say sex isn't everything. That's what it means. It means that great sex